Hello guys, and welcome to another React with Lost in the Pond. 10 things I've learned about America since moving here. Well, I want to know what he's learned, because maybe there's something I can learn. I've lived here my whole life, but even though I've been across it to a stretch that can rival the length of Europe, I still haven't been to most of it, because it's a big-ass country. So, let's see what he has to say. Finding America.
Hi, are you planning to move to the United States of America? If you are, stay tuned, because I have a video right here for you. I am a person, obviously, who has lived in the United States now for 10 years. And
10 years.
Over that time, I have made some...
Last video, he said that he had moved after 28 years. He had been living here 10 years, 6 years ago. So my man's almost, or roughly 40. That's crazy.
About
not the age, more like how much time he spent in each place.
I very succinctly want to share with you. So here are 10 things I've learned after 10 years in America. The immigration process is very thorough. We had to send in all manner of paperwork, you know, photos, affidavits from people we hardly knew.
Are you saying you didn't just walk around the border fence like the Chinese do? Sounds like you just big hassle, you know.
Hardly knew us, and I'm kidding. It was family members, and all that. And on top of that, you know, you don't just put in all this paperwork and then wait the 9 months, in which time you could have a baby if you wanted, which would mess up the immigration process in many ways. And so we didn't do that. But it cost a lot. At the end of it all, I think we were talking over $1,000 just to get the initial 2-year work and residency stay, and all of that. And then after that, I had to extend it again by another 10 years and put in a lot of documentation and all of that. So it's a bureaucratic process, but it's worth it in the end.
Nice. That sounds like a lot.
So this was something that...
I had to do a whole lot, man. I had to do a whole lot to get here. Like, first, I had to, like, you know, gestate, and I had to grow, like, really fucking big. And, you know, I'm in this, like, sack the whole time, and I have this weird tube that's just, like, feeding food and stuff into me. It's kind of weird. It's maybe a longer process than this, but... And then, you know, there's this one part where you have your mouth kind of, like, taste food and stuff, but you're not eating it. You're just tasting it. And then eventually I had to, like, crawl out of this woman's vagina, and there was a lot of screaming and blood and a lot of strangers, and it's pretty crazy, man. It sounds a lot easier to just do what he did.
You know, I came to find just because I ended up living in Indiana, which technically is not the middle of the country. It's in the Midwest, which is a misleading name because it's...
Yes, I've only recently started to understand what the Midwest is because I've never bothered to look it up because I really don't care. I thought it would have been in the middle of the West, but it's like the West... No, it's like the east of the middle of the North.
Closer, much closer to the East Coast than it is to the West. But all that to say, it's a little cheaper living inland. In Indiana, you know, we had numerous apartments all over the state, actually, where we were paying, you know, about $500-something.
What is this room, dude? Whatever this room is, I don't think it's designed to be a bedroom. I think through that door is designed to be a bedroom, because those railings are indicative that there's a stairway right there. And these areas, I'm familiar with what these areas are in houses, and they're not supposed to be bedrooms. So I'm interested by the rest of the house.
For reasonably sized apartments. When we lived in Anderson, in fact, we had a 2-floor apartment, and it was, I don't know how many square feet, 1,200, I think, and we were paying $530. If you go out to Boston or San Francisco or even up in Chicago, which technically is in the middle, but it's its own entity, it's its own country in many ways, population-wise.
Its own world.
You are looking at paying a hefty sum of money in those places. And in fact, of course, a lot of immigrants do move to the major cities. But if you're looking to pay a lot less, then avoid the coasts, you know, go inland and see what they have
Some
to
of the
offer.
coasts are affordable. Like, I think if you just go south on the East Coast, it gets pretty affordable, honestly. So it's not like all bad in the coast, but definitely there's some really affordable places to live if you go inland. Like really, really affordable. Like if you were paying 1,000 and rent one place, you're gonna pay 200 if you just go inland. Especially if you can go with your wages somehow with remote working, you're gonna live like a king, the most that you possibly can without becoming an expat.
So the national unemployment rate here, just like anywhere in the world, I suppose, can fluctuate quite drastically over 10 years. Specifically, though, the 10 years that I've been here, if I'm being truly honest, I moved here in November 2008, of course. That's when the recession was really kicking off at that point. And so we were left with an unemployment rate that was considerable. And that was, it peaked, I think, in 2010 and then obviously slowly came down to a point that it is now a very nice looking unemployment rate. But I think the reason I put this one in...
Remember, kids, the unemployment rate is not the amount of individuals that are unemployed. It's the amount of individuals that are looking for work while being truly unemployed. They show this rate instead of the actual unemployed because it makes them look better. And remember, if you go so long without finding a job, you're just not included in the statistic anymore. They just delete you. So unemployment rates are kind of stupid.
Because we think of America, don't we, as quite a prosperous nation. We think of it as, the bastion of capitalism. But it, like any other country in the world, does see a fluctuation in the job market and, of course, by extension, in the economy at large. And that's something that really hit home, I think, after moving here, because we were living in recession-hit Anderson, Indiana. Then gradually we progressed into professions that took us further afield, Indianapolis and, of course, Chicago now. And we've seen that difference and what it does to a country. Speaking of fluctuations, the weather in the Midwest is insane at times. Okay, so in the summer, it's sweltering. You know, it can get...
Does the Midwest get hurricanes, though? Don't talk to me about tornadoes. But hurricanes
get up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is mental. But then conversely, and I've spoken about this a lot of times on my channel, the winters are like hell. They are...
The way that I like to describe Fahrenheit to foreigners that are used to like Celsius is, well, instead of imagining how hot or warm you are on a scale from you're literally freezing to you're literally boiling, just imagine it on a scale from you're really fucking cold to you're really fucking hot. And that's the scale we use.
Freezing. In fact, on average, in Chicago, you're looking at about 7 degrees C lower than you would see in the north of England, on average, in December. And that's an average. So imagine the sort of the lows. We go sometimes way below zero. I think I've known it since I've been living in the United States to go something along the lines of 15 to 20 degrees C below zero, which is frighteningly cold and not entirely fit for humans.
I don't know what any of this means. To American
accents, yes. So just as Americans are often portrayed as
accents, let's go,
British accents, you know, the Queen's English and Cockney, we're not that good at knowing American accents. Or at least I can speak for myself in that regard. Before I moved to the United States, I think I knew of just sort of basic Southern English, general nightly news, a kind of New York accent. And
hey, that's my boy.
Right, that's 4. But no, America is replete with far, how many times can you say far in one sentence? Far more accents than that.
Yeah.
You could just look at the South. I said a moment ago that I knew, vaguely of a general Southern.
Even in New York City, there's a lot of different accents. One distinction is, for example, water. I say water, not water. That's hard to try to say it like that. I don't even know if I said it right, but. And then if you're in Manhattan, you say water. It's a lot stronger. It's water. They even say it like that with like the rasp and everything. But I say water because I'm from Queens.
An accent, but it has plenty of nuances all around the South. But just up here in the Great Lakes region, right, where you've got sort of Chicago or Illinois in general, you've got Wisconsin, you've got Minnesota nearby.
And don't forget about the Flushing accent. Oh my God.
Those were influenced quite heavily by Scandinavian immigrants that came in hundreds of years ago, and there's variances to accents and dialects up in this region, with which I was not familiar. Anybody that's seen perhaps Fargo, might get a sort of broad understanding of that style of speech.
I haven't.
But it's not sort of well known to us in Britain. I could and I will and I have done videos on American accents, and can speak to it more broadly outside of the context of.
His eyes are so baggy. This man needs to get some sleep. I know it's been 6 years, but bro, there's a bed. Go use it. I'm not one to talk. This is like the end of my day. You see the time right now at the bottom right, it's 7:43. I go to bed at like 11 right now. I've been doing I've done a whole like 8-hour stream. I had to wake up, do a bunch of stuff, bunch of doctor phone calls. I'm exhausted. I've already had dinner. I'm ready to pass out, but I gotta do something.
Of this list, but it's fascinating and I absolutely love it.
Hold on. No, you need a car. You might
need a vehicle.
Unless you live in New York City.
Not everywhere has public transit. There's not trains that get you from any city to any city, just like there are in Britain. You will sometimes have to rely on a vehicle. Certainly in Anderson, when I lived there, where buses were about as easy to find as jobs during the recession. It might have changed now. It was just difficult, and they it didn't exactly as a town specialize in sidewalks. Now that got better when I moved to Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. It was quite pedestrianized, so great, you could walk around or you could cycle. But if you wanted to go a bit further afield, there were buses, yeah, sure, but they were every sort of hour.
You like saying that, further afield.
Times, and you'd have to wait quite a while, and the only train to speak of in the entire state really is the one that runs from Indianapolis to Chicago and vice versa. Other than that, you're screwed, or you have to drive and get a vehicle. I've since moved to Chicago, and that has a comprehensive public transit system, as do quite a lot of cities in the United States. It really depends on where you live.
Yes. The most problematic part of generalizing and stereotyping Americans is the fact that where you live affects a lot. For example, all Americans are fat. Look at me. I get asked if I'm starving myself every time I go to the doctor. They're always worried about it. They always ask me if I'm losing weight. I'm like, no, I've always been underweight my whole life. Even when I spent my days eating 3,000 calories, I counted, of candy in the morning, an entire pie of pizza, double lunches, a dinner, a second dinner, you name it. I've always been like this. So obviously that doesn't work. But then there's also the whole, Americans, they only speak one language. Well, I think a gigantic amount of Americans actually speak Spanish, first off. But if you grew up where I grew up, where all the signs are in Polish and none of the store owners speak English, you would not be saying that. And then there's these stereotypes as well that you hear applied to America a lot. Like, they don't know where any country is. I mean, I can name most countries on the map. I've done this for fun. It's a fun thing to do to me. I acknowledge most in America cannot do that, but most countries cannot do that. Europeans get especially persnickety with it because they are so used to going in between the other countries that are next to them, and they're so small and packed tightly together, and they get so much information from us too because they watch our media. And it's like, bro, someone in America might not know where Ukraine is, but someone in Indonesia doesn't know where Canada is. I've seen it. And it's going to be the same thing everywhere. You think someone in Zimbabwe knows where Luxembourg is? You're fucking crazy. This isn't an American stereotype. It's an everybody's stereotype. And it's especially difficult to stereotype Americans because the country's just so big and it's so diverse. It goes across, I believe, 11, including non-standard time zones. And then There's just so many immigrants over so many hundreds of years poured into one place that then kind of develop their own unique cultures and neighborhoods and things like that, that you can go just down a couple blocks and end up feeling like you're in another country.
So, I spoke a moment ago about accents, but just language in general is quite a departure from what it is in the United Kingdom or in Britain. And, I think obviously we're most of us aware of things like the spelling of colour, the spelling of theatre,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. You read them in books and you see all these sort of differences in American films. But once you live here, you realise that not only are there far, far, far more language differences than we ever knew, but that different regions of America itself are different from the other. For example,
Yes.
I was in the city of Boise in
And the different generations. You can learn every American everything, but the moment you meet a Zoomer, you have to learn a whole nother language.
Idaho earlier this year, and I discovered that the animal groundhog there is called a whistle pig. Okay, a whistle pig. What a great name that is. And it's just things like that. The more you go around, the more you find there's actually linguistic nuance, to the lexicon, to pronunciation,
Like, I eat a chicken cutlet on a hero. I don't know what you guys are eating. I just know it's not a chicken cutlet on a hero.
to spelling and all of that. And it's fascinating. There's a wide array of differences, and this is the case for many different reasons. And that's one of the reasons you should follow my channel, so that we can go in depth together on those very things. Okay, speaking of things that are big, I think we knew it. Portion sizes, they are typically greater here. When I, in fact, visited Boston in 2004, I asked for a kid's ice cream, and it was that big, about the size of my face. So they've got big children out there in Boston. But, since I've moved here, I've found this to be the case also. And one discovery that came to light not long after I moved here is that a lot of places, restaurants and the like, once you get a pop, a soda, fizzy drink, whatever you want to call it, that's another regional difference here across the United States.
Yeah.
You get the chance to refill it for free refills. It's encouraged. That actually prompted me to give up pop, soda, fizzy drinks altogether, because I found myself succumbing rather too much to
You either overindulge or you just say, fuck it, I'm not buying one to begin with.
that generous offer. American people get a hard time.
I would rather just drink as much of it as I can and then just not have anything sweet for the next couple days.
When it comes to stereotypes, that they're loud, that they are overweight, and all of that. And there are
I'm
statistics
not.
to back up, certainly obesity levels in this country. And it's unfortunate. Of course, not every American fits that bill, nor should we demonize those that do. But that's just one stereotype. I think the loudness stereotype is situation specific, right? I think Americans do tend to be louder in restaurants. It's more of a cultural thing for chatter to be, at volume and to happen quite readily. But America.
I don't go to restaurants. They're expensive and you usually go with someone, and so I just eat at my table. My desk right here, my handy dandy desk, my handy dandy blue and black and blue gamer desk right here that I'm rubbing my greasy gamer hand all over to help make sure it dies a little bit earlier. Yeah, so
Americans are not always loud, and it's not like you walk into a library and find it there.
his
It's not like you.
mic is so directionally sensitive that when he turns away like that, I mean, it's gonna happen to me too, because my mic is actually here and not in front of me. And so if I look this way, but when he does this stuff here, and I can hear it in my ears, he's going back and forth. The bass turns and goes away.
You would walk into a lot of situations and find it. In fact, if you go to a football game in the United Kingdom, there's a lot of loud British people there, right? And so again, it's situation specific, and also I would say the same thing about politeness values. Okay, so British people, obviously a stereotype there is that we are polite, and I'm not saying that some of us aren't. I think there are examples of us not being. Again, at football matches, probably, right? But also.
Wait, he said there's a stereotype of Brits being polite? I haven't heard that one.
Also in other areas of life. And conversely, Americans can be some of the politest people I've ever known. In fact, to take it back into the restaurants, the waiters are almost too polite, right? They come round just to see if everything's working.
I love it. I love it so much because this complaint will come from the same person. Number one, Americans are too nice. It's fake. It makes me feel uncomfortable. They need to stop acting so nice. And then later, they'll go on about Americans all act like assholes. They're all mean. No one's ever nice or polite. These are both stereotypes. You can in no way imply them in. You cannot apply this to any demographic in the world because that's bullshit. That's not how human beings work. But the fact that like these foreigners will say both things and it'll come out of the same person's mouth is just so insane to me, man. I never understand listening to like usually Europeans talking about America because there's a lot of just really contradicting things that get said.
Working out for you, and at times that can, to a British person like myself, that can be quite burdensome because you want to take that time to have a conversation with the person you're eating with, not with the person serving the food. So there are ups and downs to that one, but I would definitely not say that all Americans are direct to the point of being impolite. There is a directness here, but I think that Americans tend to be among some of the politest people I've ever met. There are multiple states, 11 of them in total, I think 10 of those are out west, that are larger than the United Kingdom.
That sentence has so much lead up. I was getting really confused. I was like, there's more than 11 states. What are you talking about?
Kingdom, at least in terms of area, not in terms of population. In fact, in the case of Wyoming, it has, I think, a population of about 500,000. There are actually more cows there than people, and yet it's roughly the same size area-wise as the entire United Kingdom. But it's huge. The country is massive, and you only really realize that, I think, when you are
and it could have been bigger. It could have been. But what did we do? We gave Cuba their independence. Well, we kept Puerto Rico, but we gave the Philippines their independence. We conquered all of Mexico and then got rid of it because if we didn't, then the Democrats were going to use it to keep slavery for the rest of forever, probably. And then we probably still have a lot more slavery in the world. Canada exists because we let it, let's be real. That's why they moved the capital to where they moved it to back in the day. Although at this point, it's like a plane can get there and hit it in no time flat, but we didn't have planes then. We had like horses and not even a professional military at the time. Yet they still moved their capital to a place that they thought was safe enough from America with that technology at the time. We occupied Greenland and Iceland and gave it back. We used to have colonies around the Indo-Pacific region. So many things. We occupied because we conquered Japan and more, because that includes other things as well. And we just give everything independence. Everyone gets independence except the South, Texas, and California. Nobody, like, everyone gets independence except you guys. Puerto Rico could probably get independence right now if they wanted it. It could have been so much bigger. Would that have been a good thing? I don't know. We'll never know.
Around by car, and you see that sometimes it can take more than a day to get through an entire state. The place is huge, and I love it for that, because it means that, you know, it's forever going to be an adventure to go and visit all 50 states, which is something that I've been trying to do.
Yeah, visit them again, and it'll probably be completely different by the time you get back there.
So that's it. 10 observations after 10 years in America. I might do a part B. There's a lot more to say. Thank you for watching this video, and if you are planning to move to the United States, why don't you drop me a comment in the comments box below? And if you would like to help fund this channel, you can do so by going to patreon.com/lostinthepond. We are thankful to all of our patrons, who you can see flashing up on your screen right there. Furthermore, if you feel like you can't live without my videos, then you better seek professional help, or subscribe to my channel by punching my little face right there. And alternatively, if you enjoyed this video, I think maybe you might enjoy this one. 6 reasons I actually love living in the United States. They're all true.
Well, that was a fun video. Did I learn anything? I don't know. I feel like I just echoed a lot of what he said and then interjected a lot of what I thought. I don't think any of it was really new to me. No, not really. But that was fun still, nonetheless. I had fun with it. Hope you guys had fun with it. If you want to see me react to anything else, feel free to leave some suggestions in the comments below. Do not leave any links though, because YouTube will eat those. You can join the Discord in the description below, where you can leave a link if you have something that you want me to react to. So, for now, that's it for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.